Yo, dog, Kenny Boucher here, Next Level Painting, hitting you up on the literal best of all days, coming to you with another painting tutorial. We're gonna do this thing yellow secretly easy. I don't even know how many times we've done this video, but yo, Imperial fists are hitting the market right meow. So I'm gonna show you how to do this in a couple of simple techniques, and we're gonna be leaning on that Army Painter system. I got the War Games complete paint set. This is that limited edition shit, dude. This is a incredible amount of paints, and they have an incredible collection of yellows. So even though I've done yellow secretly easy, I don't think we've done it recently and with this system. So I'm gonna show you one of my favorite setups. I'm just gonna make a mustard, like a yellow, like base color. With yellow, it's important to establish a solid base coat. Now I'm just using an orange, like a desert yellow, a really kind of in between mustardy yellow. I'm gonna make a kind of a browny, orangey yellow base. That's the scientific term for it. Now, some people make this color, some people don't, but I always strongly recommend establishing a solid place for yellows to exist. And you can see it's basically just kind of a rusty orange color, and you could just make it with whatever colors you have. It's not science. We're going to be doing this over a bit of a pre-highlight. Now, I've shown you pre-highlights before. You can check that video out right there. Now, this is just one way to do yellow. It is my goal to show you more than one way with this video. You can see that this Reaver was primed gray, kind of pre-highlighted with some whites. And then we're just going to lightly glaze using our airbrush this kind of mustardy orange we made right over it. Now, you can let it just ride. This could be your color. And then you can just paint all the details in and have a really nice yellow. This is just one of many ways to approach that. Now, this is why I like the basis of our yellow to be a little orangey, a little brown, because when you do have yellow stick to a pre-highlight, it has a tendency to green out on you, get kind of shitty looking if you don't have browns and oranges in it. We're going to take some of those same yellows, like Phoenix yellow, I believe is the color. They have I'm going to show you guys all the yellows in the Army Painter system. We're going to just add a little of this like Phoenix yellow. It's like a really deep, beautiful yellow. We're going to throw it in the pot with some of that previous. I'm kind of show you the second way to do yellow. If you just left that marine alone as is, that's a solid tabletop yellow. Throw some details on it. Nobody will even question how beautiful your army looks. But if you want to start introducing some transitions, take that mix, add a little bit of a brighter yellow to it, and just add some highlights. Now we're going to flip the model upside down. We're just kind of looking at it, kind of planning out of approach. And we're going to just sling some of this slightly brighter, more pure yellow in directly on top of the helmet, the shoulder pads, the chest, the knees, the legs, the backpack, the normal stuff. Now I'm using that Krios, that's that GSI Mr. Hobby Advanced Technology airbrush, where it does have a little bit of a regulator valve in the front, and I did drop it down to very light PSI. I'm probably like sub 10 PSI. And when you go this subtle, you have to make sure the paint is kind of extra thin, or it will definitely splatter on you. That's a pro tip, guys. So thin it down when you're going to be running less PSI, but normally I like to live in the 28, 30 PSI range. So he's looking beautiful. That's another way to do yellow. You could just let this ride like this and be totally happy. That is, magnificent. You can cut all the details in, drop some edge highlights, that GW style, and that would be a fine ass Imperial fist. Now we're going to go to the demonic yellow, which is kind of their bright golden yellow. This is a staple of the Army Painter colors. They even have a spray paint. You could just skip all previous steps, buy demonic yellow spray paint, colored primer, and just spray your motherfuckers with that. Cut half of this out. You see what I'm saying? That's why the Army Painter system is so good for this. Now we're going to just redo many of the things we just did. This is a whole other way to do yellow. If you want there to be more of a brightness to it, more of like a sunlight is hitting his armor effect, a little bit brighter, then you just kick it up a notch with this technique, right? But like I said, it's totally preference. There is as many ways to paint Imperial Fist as there are people who love Imperial Fist. And every one of them has a different vision of Imperial Fist yellow. Now, Moon Dust is a truly bright yellow. We're going to add some of that to the previous mix. Now, it's always important to marry your colors together when you're doing this with the airbrush. It really establishes a smoother transition when it can have the previous color in the mix. Same deal. We're going to thin it down, cut the regulator, and we're just going to do that final pop. Every single one of these, you could have stopped at it and had a nice looking Imperial Fist. You don't need to use every yellow onto the, like in existence. Phoenix Flames, Demonic Yellow, Babe Blonde is another amazing one. Moon Dust. Look at Army Painter's got the yellow situation on lock. Guys, if you're doing some Imperial Fist right now, strongly recommend picking up this line of paints. It truly did make painting yellow secretly easy. But hey, there's more. We're going to just take a look at them. Wow! That fast, guys. I just cut the details in. I'm not going to make you watch me paint all the details in. I've got 100 videos about that. But what we are going to do is grab the Mr. Weathering Advanced Technology, Mr. Hobby, Multi-Black, Brown Stain, and of course the 110 solvent. This is an oil wash, okay? So what I'm going to do is kind of take the solvent and just dab it on the model, kind of prepping the model. This kind of helps it move faster and spread out faster. I've also noticed it kind of breaks the bond a little bit of the oil and keeps it a little rough and stainy in the recesses. So what I want to do is show you guys a quick and easy off the primer way to make that yellow dirty, to make it look a little bit more real, a little bit more muted. Maybe not the traditional comic book yellow. You see what I'm saying? So this is where I'm saying I'm trying to take a different approach to it. So by bathing this dude in that solvent and then reaching for some solvent and some stain brown and going for some black, I'm trying to let it find its way into the crevices, and you'll notice it leaves that yellow intact. Oil washes are really good for these bright colors so they don't fuck them up. The trick here with the oil wash is to stay active. Make sure you use the solvent. I have used other oil washes before, and I don't think any of them are as good as this one, to be honest. The Mr. Hobby does it the best in my opinion. I think it has the most amount of workability. You can really play with the blends easier. You can reactivate it, and it also dries the fastest from what I've seen. And whatever the solvent is made out of doesn't have any negative effects on the undercoat of paint. I have no varnish on this guy, nothing. I'm just going raw dog over an airbrush. This would normally make me nervous with a traditional wash. So it's advanced, but like oil washing is not for every project. Straight up, it's not always what you want. But we're gonna get him looking good. He already looks amazing. Imagine if you just bought the demonic yellow colored primer, hit him with that, do the details, hit him with the oil wash, Imperial Fist on the tabletop this weekend. That easy. So I do like to work the oil a little bit, go back and forth with my brushes. I do have a couple of brushes that are just for the oils. You can use the Q-tips, kind of dip them in the solvent, and you can use it to subtract some of the staining from the knee pads, the shoulder pads, the tops of the helmet, the chest. You see how easily it does that. These are the Mr. Hobby branded Q-tips. They're tight, packed cotton. They leave no fibers behind. Make sure you use a light touch when you're doing it, though, so you don't peel any paint off. Conversely, you don't have to use a Q-tip. You could just straight up use a paintbrush, which I do a lot. But when I find when I'm trying to clear some of the staining away from the big round area, the Q-tip does a little bit better job of it, and it really helps amp it up. But I'll show you too. You could just use the brush. That's just solvent on the brush. You can just use kind of a stippling motion, kind of just manipulate it, push some of the wash around, get yourself a nice solid blend. That's what the oil wash really does over a traditional wash, is it helps you blend it. But we went on really aggressive. We used a combination of black and brown. And once it starts drying in those recesses up against like his helmet and his shoulders and everything like that, it's going to give you a little bit of a dirty effect. A little bit more than it normally would otherwise. Hey, real quick, while that dries, we got the new Iron Hands design in the swag shop. Your shit's weak. Mummy robes. One of my favorite colors. We're going to mix a little mummy robe with a little of that moon dust yellow, and we're going to just trace it out now. You could put this guy on the table and be happy. But let me show you another thing you can do. Ancient Chinese technique. Highlight yellow, not with white, but with an ivory. If you can mix the ivory in with your previous yellow, it's traditionally going to give you a sharper look, and it's going to be less muted and less pastel to help your armor look a little bit more natural. If you've ever been painting yellow, then you get to this step and then you trace out some of these lines. Then you look at them and you're like, why is it not as vibrant as it was a second ago, even though I have all these cool highlights? It's because it pasteled on you. And I'm going to show you a technique with yellow especially that I like to use in all projects, because even this technique still doesn't have the sharpness I always want. So remember pre-highlighting, we've covered it many times. You can also, at any point during a project, treat a step like this as appreciate. All those ivory lines with a little bit of yellow mixed in it, we can still glaze yellow back over those and sharpen it up and get that vibrancy back if we want. So I do that with flame effects all the time, and especially on yellow armor like this. But first things first, get your tracing done. Get all those little edges done. You don't need to go crazy like Tron. Just get the predominant areas, more heroic. Cut in under these vents, tops of the knees, tops of the hands, just a little bit on the shoulders. No big deal. You don't want to sit there and spend 1 billion seconds tracing this dude out. Literally, that's 30 years of your life to highlight one Space Marine. Yes, but I can't tell you how many years it took me to discover ivory is the ultimate color to mix with colors like yellow. I mean, honestly, I don't use white that much at all now. And Mummy Robes is one of my favorite ivories, and also coolest name award for a paint color. Thanks to Army Painter. So we're looking good here. Let's just accelerate it real quick and show you some of my other techniques. Pop in here, get inside those armpits, get those couplings, make them look good and sharp. You want to be really methodical here. Make sure you move the model more so you're always kind of stroking the same direction. Try to avoid windshield wiper motions. If you can drag the line straight to your heart, that's what I prefer to do. If you can catch the flat edge of the brush against a like a 90-degree angle in the model, it's the only time I go side to side. So snap my fingers, a lot more is already done. You can see he's looking real sharp, but if you really look at it, you can't help but notice something about it is a little bit more muted than you want it to be. And that is because at the end of the day, we highlighted that yellow with an off-white. Now, one of my favorite highlights, don't ever forget it, get inside the shoulder pad field, drop a cool little fake highlight in there. I just love that technique. Here we go. We're going to go back a step. Demonic yellow. We're going to thin it down like a glaze. You don't have to be a scientist about this. Just really thin demonic yellow. And what I'm going to do is kind of just glaze it in up against these highlights and let it like kind of just creep into the field. And what it's going to do is just add a little bit of a vibrancy tint to that pastel line we did. If you ever find a line doesn't look right and it's a little bit more pastel than you want, just take the previous yellow, red, blue, I don't give a fuck what color it is, glaze it down. Check it out, I got a little flow improver here. I'm gonna thin it down like crazy like that. I'm gonna dry the tip a little bit on my wrist, and we're just gonna go in there and just fuzz out the lines is the technical term. And it's going to just add a clean, vibrant yellow to it, but it's going to be so thin, it's going to kind of just fade into the rest of the armor, but it will have an undeniable tint and vibrancy increase to those lines. As it dries, you'll see what I'm talking about. This works really good on fire, like I said. If you're going back and forth and you're fighting a fire effect with a red and orange and yellow and white, and it doesn't look right to you, take an orange, glaze it back in on the midtone, or even the yellow. Always is a thing. I find yellow is a little tricky if you don't understand if you don't understand why things are happening. Yellow can be tricky, but at the end of the day, yellow is not any more difficult to paint than any other color as long as you're armed with the techniques. And this is the next level painting system. This is 101 right here. This is how you get your armies on the table this weekend. Just having fun, glazing it down, listening to my audiobook right now. I'm actually finishing up the Rhaenyra Revelations for my second read through. What are you guys listening to on Audible right now? All right, let that glaze dry up a little bit. Sneak in there. Let's just go for round 2. Thin it down. You can see how I do it. Hit the tops of these shoes, the greaves, all that shit. Pop out these clean little vibrancy modes, and you can do almost as much work with a glaze technique as you can with an airbrush. Boom. Look how pretty that is. Just some nice, clean, demonic yellow. Beautiful looking dude. Real quick, let's just grab some red. And I'm going to show you guys, because we washed the whole model. So I'm just going to take the first red that I can grab. Pure red from Army Painter. Drop a few little highlights in on some of the details. Pow. A lot of this is we're still kind of glazing here, guys. We're still going on real thin. Too easy. I'm going to throw in a little bit of a flesh tone. That's one of my other secret techniques. Actually, I cheated here. What I did was I grabbed some of the yellow that was just laying on my wet palette and mixing it with the red and just use that because I was being lazy. But hey, it works. Kind of makes it a weird pink. We're going to drag a little highlight in on this knee pad. It's still kind of wet, so whoops, we're wet blending now. So I'm just going to bulldog my way through it, grab some more moisture, just lightly feather that highlight in, and hey, look, that was totally intentional. We're going to grab some of the same brown, random mummy robe, mix it into the brown. Mummy robe works for everything. Cut in little highlights on all his belt pouches. This is where he keeps all his dice, his tape measures, and his rules literature. For his games of 40K, he plays with his boys in between games. Drag a little bit of a bright steel, whatever. I'm using plate mail from Army Painter right here over gunmetal. Real quick, just drag a couple highlights in there. Yo, highlighting secretly easy. All day, every day. I'm going to grab a little mummy robe, mix it in with some black. I'm going to just trace a couple of cool little highlights on his little Reaver skull face mask that makes him look like a true pimp. Love this dude. Make sure his teeth look scary and menacing. Wow. All day, every day. He's got all these cool little wires where his abs would be. I love that effect. It's one of the coolest looking models. It's for that mobility. Looking like a gangster. Same thing. Let's catch some highlights in these ligaments right there. And done. Imperial Fist. Tabletop ready and beyond. In just a few simple steps. Painting yellow secretly easy, guys. Hey, thanks for checking out these tutorials. Play on, players. If you like these tutorials, check out Next Level Painting on Patreon. Become a patron of the arts today. We offer early and exclusive access to our videos and a rewards program for different pledge levels. Patreon is PayPal and credit card secure, so you don't have to worry about that. We use 100% of the money to improve our process.